Welcome back to the Double Leg. I'm one half of the show, Hey Job Picks. The other half of the show, the Parlay, joining me in to break down some UFC Abu Dhabi. But before we do that, let's recap UFC 304. Belal Muhammad is the champion of the world. Remember the name, remember the decision, remember the takedowns for me. What do you think of Belal Muhammad running the weight class now? And, of course, we had Tommy Aspinall as well getting it done. What do you think of the card? How'd it go for you?
Yeah, no, I love that Belal won, man. I put a video out. Let's see, I think it was like early June or late May when the fight got announced that I thought Belal Muhammad had a chance to win this one. Made a video the week of, given my official play, Belal Muhammad plus 210. I just thought, man, he'd have a year to prepare for this fight. Leon was almost looking past him, talking about he wants to fight Islam or whoever the hell next. He'd fight McGregor. He wasn't really dialed in. It didn't seem like, and Belal, this is his last chance. This is his only chance. The dude never got the chance he deserved after going on this long win streak. Finally gets the opportunity. I knew he wasn't gonna get blown out here. He's gonna make it very close. And plus 210 was absolute value. So on the night though, I ended up 0.45 units. So right under a half unit, which I'm cool with, considering we got 7 decisions in a row at one point. When fights go to decision in the UFC, a lot of times it's a coin flip. You never know what's going to happen with these judges. So considering that, missing a lot of props, I had a decent night with the straight bets. Hit Patty, I hit RoboCop, I hit Belal Muhammad. It was a decent night there. So I'll take the profit. It's 4 weeks in a row. As far as the card goes, the main card was pretty fun. Prelims were so, but I don't know. I had a lot of fun watching when the bets were hitting. So how'd it go for you?
Yeah, you've been killing it. 4 weeks in a row in the profit. That's not easy to do.
We're going for 10.
We're going for 10. I mean, we
Almost
got
halfway there.
We got Contender Series coming up too in a couple of weeks, so we can add that to the tally, and hopefully we make some money there. But last week for me, UFC 304 started off so bad. I think I hit one bet on the prelims. I was down like 8 units, 7 or 8 units on the prelims. And then we brought ourselves back a little bit on the main card. Had a pretty good main card. Hit Paddy Pimblett round 1, finished plus 550, and then the under 1.5 in the co-main, and then we hit the over 4.5 in the main event, which was the biggest play of the night for me. And then we hit the nice Belal Muhammad money line. So yeah, I mean, it was a good way to end the night because it wasn't looking good, and ultimately it came down to the 3-unit play on the under 2.5 in the Pineda and Wood fight, that if that one cashes, then we'd be in the profit. But, didn't. So we were in the negative last week, but we didn't give away too much after the big cash 2 weekends ago at UFC Vegas 94. So looking to get back in the green here. And, Belal Muhammad, man, gotta love it. You gotta love it. We sat here last week and we were like, we got a guy that can win in multiple ways, whether it's wrestling, whether it's just out striking a guy. He can win in multiple ways, and that's a dangerous dude. He's been out for a long time. And I don't remember exactly who we picked, but we were both like, if we're going to bet on it, it's Belal Muhammad. And eventually we did both bet on it. So it's a good cash there. But anything else before we hop into this UFC Abu Dhabi breakdown?
Yeah, as much as I like Belal Muhammad. People hate him so much, but I don't know. I like him. His fights are sometimes boring, whatever. But if you're a betting dude, like that's the easiest non-sweat type of fighter to bet, is a guy who's going to go out there and wrestle, make it boring, grind it out, get the easy dubs. And plus 210, I'll take that all night long. But I will say the hands were not Canelo-like for Belal Muhammad, like his trainer.
Best,
I was too. He was accurate. He wasn't hitting any. He wasn't really. I'd say he was given like 75, 80% on his punches. He wasn't over swinging. He was very technical and calm. A little slow, but they were landing. And that uppercut that caught Leon early in the fight, like Leon did a little wobble there for a second. And props to Belal, because he's really rounded out his game. He's got phenomenal cardio, looked in better shape than I'd ever seen him. And he deserved the win for sure. I was happy for it.
Yeah, he was just like throwing stuff out there just so Leon couldn't get comfortable. And I think that was the perfect game plan. There was a game plan he had to go in there with. He had the right game plan. He executed it perfectly. And that's how you get an upset win in the UFC, especially against a guy in Leon who is really good, but does tend to fight pretty close with his opponents. And you can't really do that at a high level. So
Yep.
Takes the loss. Bilal takes the dub. But now let's move into UFC Abu Dhabi. We're going to go through, give you a breakdown for every single fight on the card. We will give you a pick, but these are not bets. If you want the bets, jump in the Homified Picks premium membership. That's where you're going to get every single one of our UFC bets every single week. Without any further ado, let's start it off. First fight of the night, Cedriques Dumas sitting at minus 225 against Denis Tiuliulin, sitting at plus 172. Tiuliulin's 36, man. Dang, I didn't even realize that. Dumas 28. Dumas coming in here off the loss to Nursultan Ruzaboyev. And if you know Denis Tiuliulin, that 11-9 record is not deceiving. He has not had a good run in the UFC. He's 1-4. That one win coming to Jamie Pickett. Other than that, he's taken L's. Granted, to some decent level competition. CLD, Gregory Rodriguez, Genuine Park, and Aliaskhab Hisria. So he's fought some good competition. Coming in here as the dog, do you think he can pull it off?
Oh, man. First, I think minus 225 on Cedriques Dumas is a little wild. Anybody who's fighting. Tiuliulin's not a guy who's going to get a lot of wins in the UFC because he has big holes in his game. With the grappling mainly and the wrestling defense, like we saw him taken down, submitted over against Jung Young Park. It just had no answer off of his back. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to get to his feet. Like if you watch that fight, he's grabbing onto him in a perfect position for Park to kind of land some massive elbows on top until he could find the submission too. RoboCop dominated him, and Christian Leroy Duncan gets the knockout in round 2. But in that fight with Duncan, Tiuliulin, you can tell if you're going to stay on the feet with him, you've got to knock him out because he's going to make it close. Like he's not a bad boxer by any means, and he holds some power. He was hitting CLD in that fight, with some decent shots. He didn't throw a lot of volume or land a lot, but when he did, I mean, he made it count. And against Dumas is a little wild. He'll throw some big looping hooks, wild kicks. And, if he slips up a little bit and gets caught, like Tiuliulin can land shots against Dumas. If Dumas goes out there and wrestles and is able to take Tiuliulin down, I think it's Dumas all day long. But I don't know, man. If it stays on the feet, I think it's closer than people think. And it's not like Tiuliulin has terrible takedown defense. Like the guy has a 73% accuracy of stuff in the takedown. It's just once it does get there, he's not good whatsoever. I don't know if Dumas has the wrestling pedigree to take him down over and over and hold him there without getting tired himself. While it's on the feet, this is going to be a close fight. So if you're betting, I think this is dog or pass. Do I think Dumas wins the fight? Probably so. He probably is going to come out here and try to get a win that he needs desperately. But this is a step down for Tiuliulin too. He's going Jun Young Park, Gregory Rodriguez, CLD, and now Dumas. So it's a step down for him. I don't know. We'll see what happens. This is probably not a terrible dog shot if you are a betting man, but I don't know if I'll get there quite yet.
Yeah, I kind of see it the same way. I think Dumas is probably the rightful favorite, considering he's probably got a higher ceiling in the UFC. He's younger. I think he's got a speed advantage in this one, length advantage as well. He's got really nice kicks from the outside. He can get takedowns, but he doesn't really do much with them. So he could probably get a takedown on Tiuliulin, but I don't know that he's going to be, like a Gregory Rodriguez on top, smashing him in the face or latching up a rear naked choke like Hisria. But on the feet, I mean, Tiuliulin's a brawler. He's just going to keep coming forward. He's going to take the punches. He's going to wear the damage, that's for sure. I mean, the guy gets hit, and it gets hit pretty hard, but he's fairly durable on the feet. But you can only take so many punches, and we'll see if Dumas has that type of volume to get him out of there. But I think Tiuliulin on the feet is probably his best chance to just land some big bombs. But I think Dumas has a pretty good chin. So the line is wide in my opinion, but I do think Dumas is probably the rightful favorite and probably walks away with this one with a win. So I'll take Dumas for a pick. Moving on, we got Jai Herbert taking on Rolando Bedoya, sitting at plus 144, taking on Jai, who's sitting at minus 186. Jai is now 36 years of age. Bedoya is moving down from 170 to the 155-pound weight class. You see there on the screen, don't exactly look the most muscular, but it does look like he's got some six-pack action going on now. I think that's a smart move for Bedoya to move down to 155. He wasn't really getting a ton of finishes at 170, and having to deal with, big muscular guys like a Chaos Williams at 170 is a tough ask. And he had a close fight with Chaos, and then he goes and fights Song Kanon, where he was a big favorite, and everyone was kind of looking at him like, well, if he had a really close fight with Chaos, he should probably beat Song Kanon. Then he loses, gets dropped, and just gets hit with the more impactful punches. Still landed a ton of volume, but lost on the scorecards there in Singapore. And now Jai Herbert has had such a weird run in the UFC, man. Like, he's fought really good level of competition, but he's had a lot of losses, and he's got a draw. I mean, his last fight was Ziam, who Ziam is picking up wins in the UFC. Ludovic draw to Ludovic Klein, which ages pretty well, in a fight that he realistically won, but he got a point taken away. So that ages really well. The win over Kyle Nelson ages really well. Dropped Ilya Topuria, even though he got brutally knocked out. But I mean, just the fact that you could land something like that on Ilya ages pretty well. And then losses to like Moicano ages well. So I mean, he's had a really good level of competition, and I can see why he's the favorite here. But do you see any value on the dog?
I do, and I'll tell you why in a minute. There's a couple things that really stick out to me, but first, Jai Herbert's got one of the best nicknames in the gang, the Black Country Banger. And like you mentioned, I was going to touch on, Kyle Nelson, 3-fight win streak. He beat him. Ludovic Klein is murking people right now, and he went to a draw with him, like you said, got the point taken away, would have won the fight. Farziam, 3-fight win streak. Like, this guy's fights, win or lose, are aging really well. His striking is very good. His kickboxing, he's very sneaky with the kicks, like we saw against Topuria. But a few things that stick out to me is that he's 36 years old, getting a little bit older. He's not like extremely active by any means. At this point, at least, he's going to be coming on a year. I guess it's been over a year since we've seen him. And then you look at Bedoya, and this dude might not, have the most knockout power, at least at 170 where he was fighting, but he throws so much volume and he's constantly hitting you with something. He landed 150 significant strikes against Chaos Williams, arguably won the fight, lost a split decision on the cards. And then Song Kanon, he outstrikes him, lands 112 significant strikes in that one, takes a loss. But, if you look at Jai, this guy lands a very, very, very low volume of strikes at 2.69. He's not out there, throwing a crazy amount. I think he could fall behind a little bit against Bedoya. I think if Bedoya comes out, does what he does, gets in his face, throws the kitchen sink at him for 3 rounds, he's going to have a good chance to win this fight. I think Jai, if he finds a big head kick, maybe he could knock him out. But Bedoya's taken Chaos Williams' biggest shots. He's taken Song Kanon's biggest shots, hung in there, made it to the bell, and that's at 170. Now he's dropping down to the smaller guys at 155. Like you said, looks like he's in better shape. I think this could be a little bounce back spot, a little buy low spot on Bedoya. I mean, plus 144, not a bad line in my opinion. He's going to be the younger guy. He's a guy that's game too. You watch him against Chaos in his UFC debut as a massive underdog, comes out there and goes toe to toe with a guy that people were, raving about his power and his striking. And he took him to a very, very razor close decision that was an all out war. So, yeah, I think there is value on the dog. I'm actually going to pick him here. I don't like the low volume for Jai. Bedoya in his first 2 UFC fights is landing 8.70 significant strikes per minute, which is probably at welterweight, I'd say maybe the most in the division out of guys that have a couple fights in the UFC. So, yeah, I don't know. I see a lot of things I like on Bedoya's side here as far as the statistical things go.
It's kind of what I'm seeing too, man. Like, obviously the youth is an advantage for Bedoya in this spot. He's already picked up a couple of UFC fights. The move down to 155 is good in my opinion. And then for Jai Herbert, it's like he's 36. He's what, 2-3-1 in the UFC. So it's not really like he has some bright future. And yeah, he's had some good competition, but he's also been finished by a lot of that good competition. I don't really think his durability is really all there. He's been knocked out 3 times. Even got knocked out by Reese McKee, back in 2016. That doesn't age very well. And even Francisco Trinaldo. Like, Trinaldo was probably 40 years old at that point. So yeah. I don't know, man. I think Jai Herbert has good skills. He just never really puts them all together. He also trains with Leon Edwards, Team Renegade. for some reason, just everybody that is a kickboxer from Europe nowadays is just super low volume. Like they just don't throw. And it's like, dude, you're 6'1". You have a reach advantage on most guys. Pump a jab out there, throw some kicks. In this fight, like Bedoya is probably going to double him up, if not triple him up in significant strikes. Because Jai Herbert holds a 10% takedown accuracy in the UFC. So he's probably not going to get takedowns at will against Bedoya. And he lands, what, 6 significant strikes less than Rolando Bedoya? That's a huge difference. So fight probably plays out on the feet, and I'm going to take the guy in Bedoya who's younger, more durable, and throws a lot more. So that's kind of what I chalk it up to, a dog or pass for sure. And I guess I'll take Bedoya for a pick as well. Moving on, we got Victoria Dudakova and Sam Hughes. Sam Page coming in as the underdog, which she has always been in the UFC. Never been a favorite, but she has picked up 3 wins in the UFC. So she's come through as the dog before. She's taken on the undefeated Victoria Dudakova, who once again has the youth advantage. She is now 2-0 in the UFC. One of those was an injury, but did pick up a decision win her last time out against Jinyu Frey. Interesting fight here, women's MMA. You see the value on the dog in women's MMA like we like to see, or are you going with the favorite?
I normally do like Sam Hughes as the dog, maybe not against Jauregui in her last fight, but against Amarim, I had Amarim by sub round 1 or 2, I believe. I can't remember exactly. I know it was something with the sub prop. Had it locked in, and like for Amarim being such a jiu-jitsu wizard, I don't know how she didn't finish the fight. I was pissed. But Sam hangs in there, dude. She doesn't get finished that often, if ever, in the UFC. Maybe her against Tisha Torres Pennington, I guess, in her first fight in the UFC. After that, she goes to decision because she's tough. She has phenomenal cardio. She's going to be there all 3 rounds. Against girls like Amarim, who don't have that much experience, was making her debut. Okay, she's beaten her. Elise Reed beat her in the 3rd round after she just, used that cardio to her advantage, used her takedowns. And same thing with Estela Nunez, was able to make that fight super close going down to the wire. So Victoria Dudakova, if she slows down, maybe Sam Hughes wins the 3rd, but Dudakova hasn't really shown us any fights really where that's going to be the case. Like I know the one fight she had staff, maybe she didn't look. Was that against Fry?
Yeah, it was against Fry.
Yeah, okay. And she still outlanded her 74-47, had a knockdown, did well. So, against a girl that's not really going to slow down, a girl that throws decent enough volume and lands takedowns at a 40% clip, I think that's gonna make Sam struggle. Sam's not really she didn't have the best takedown defense. I think when she wins fights, like I said, she's just kind of outlasting her opponents using the cardio, but we've seen her taken down like 5 times against Piera Rodriguez, twice in the 1st or 2nd round against Amarim. She's been taken down twice by Luana Pinejo, 4 times by Loma, my girl. Like this girl gives up a ton of takedowns, and I think Dudakova is pretty solid. 2-0 in the UFC. I think Sam could maybe make it close towards the end, but the first 2 rounds, I think Dudakova takes a good percentage of the time. So taking the favorite here, man.
Yeah, I could see a reason to look the Sam Page way because I've been a Sam Hughes guy, man, for a little bit. Ever since she cashed against Elise Reed, I was like, okay, this girl's got some heart because she was coming off a win against Nunes, but Nunes just kind of gassed out. And Elise Reed never really has any type of ground game. So at least, you could trust Sam Hughes to kind of work to her strengths. And what are her strengths? Like, she's got good cardio, she's got good pace, and she is tough. So if she can implement this here, she could get a win, but she's definitely not the most talented fighter. She's not as talented as Victoria Dudakova. Like Dudakova is still 25. She's still young in her career, but I think she's a lot faster. I think she has better movement. I think she has good wrestling. But we did see her get held down by Jinyu Frey, so that does make me a little bit wary as to, if Jinyu Frey can hold you down for a little bit, I think Sam Hughes probably could. So Sam Hughes is live, but she's just not the better fighter here. She's just not the better fighter overall. She just doesn't have any pop on her shots. She doesn't really have the best wrestling. I don't really see her out wrestling Victoria Dudakova for 3 rounds. I guess she only needs to do it for 2. But I think Dudakova is good enough to get a win over Sam Hughes. So I'm going to take Dudakova for a pick. Not that I would bet on her, though. I'm honestly kind of surprised that this line isn't wider.
Yeah,
I would have thought Dudakova would be like minus 250. And normally in that spot, you're like, oh, value on Dudakova. But I'm kind of like, is this a trap? Like, what's going on here? Because Sam Hughes is usually a pretty big dog. And considering Dudakova is undefeated Russian, like, I kind of feel like this is a little bit trappy. I don't know. But we'll take more looks at through it throughout the week. But for now, Dudakova is going to be the pick. Moving on, we got Guram Kutateladze taking on the UFC debuter Jordan Vucenic. Vucenic coming in as the dog, plus 164. Guram comes back at minus 215. So Vucenic is normally a featherweight fighter. He had a fight, 9 days ago, July 20th, at a weight of 157 in Cage Warriors. He got a win, and he's making the turnaround. He's going to fight at 155 once again. 9-1 in Cage Warriors. His only loss is to Paul Hughes in a 5-round featherweight championship bout where he lost a unanimous decision. So this guy's pretty damn good. He's been running the Cage Warriors scene for a while. Makes his UFC debut up a weight class against Guram, who has lost 2 fights in a row. And I don't think he's getting exactly an easy fight here against Jordan Vucenic, but is definitely, favors him a little bit more. Short notice. This guy's going up a weight class, and he's been, training for this fight for a while. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, it's tough because with these debuters, you just never know what they're going to come in and have cardio-wise at this level with the nerves, all of that stuff. And, it's a big card. You're making your debut on an Abu Dhabi Fight Night card, live crowd. It's a little bit tougher, I think, than coming into the Apex where a lot of guys get their debut. Guram, though, if I'm playing the underdog here, I think it's more of just a fade on Guram. Like, Guram came into the UFC, got a win over Mateusz Gamrot, and was 12-2 at that time. And people were thinking this guy was going to have, some kind of run. He looked phenomenal, was able to, make a pretty good case for, or not even a case, but just kind of getting a little hype behind him. And then he fights Damir Ismagulov, loses a razor close fight. But then Elvis Brenner, I don't know, man. I find it hard to believe that's not going to kind of change his mentality and the way he fights. Like, he was winning that fight. He was getting hit with some big shots. And then I don't know if he got hurt with the shot that Brenner initially landed or what happened, but he gets put down, gets finished by TKO. And, Brenner, I know, is a dog. It's not like he gets a ton of knockouts and hit. I guess he has a couple in the UFC, but it's not like he hits really hard. He's just kind of a guy that has a bunch of dog in him and will fight really scrappy. And Guram just kind of seems to fold down the stretch to that kind of style, to that pressure. And when I watch Jordan Vucenic, it kind of seems like that's what he's got. He's a guy who can get takedowns. He's a guy who's going to, wear on you on the ground, make you fight submission attempts, but on the feet, like, he's not a slouch at all. I think he's got a good 1-2 down the middle from what I've seen in the Cage Warriors, and he follows it up with a head kick at times. And he likes to fight with some pressure in your face. Like, that's kind of what you have to do against Guram to wear him down, to slow him down. And if you make Guram fight at your style or at your pace, sooner or later, he kind of folds, in my opinion, and slows down. Yeah. It just all comes down to how's that cardio going to be for his UFC debut. Like, can he hang for 3 rounds with his first time to the octagon? It's so up in the air with these debuters. Makes me want to take a shot on the dog here because I don't really like what I've seen out of Guram. But, at the end of the day, Guram is a talented fighter. It's just, can he hold it together for 3 rounds? So there's some ifs on both sides. I'm going to take a shot on the dog, though. I think he has some good experience. Cage Warriors champion there, fighting decent guys. Guram hasn't panned out in the UFC. He's 1-2 now. So, yeah, I'm going to take a shot on the dog here, but this could be a very, very close fight.
I think where Guram goes wrong is he uses such explosive movements in his striking, and honestly, just when he's on the feet, like, he's so jittery, he's kind of bouncy, and his entries are so explosive, and it works for like the first round or 2, and then he starts to slow down, then he becomes more hittable. And even when early in the fight, he's hittable as well. I think he explodes so fast that once he's done with his explosion, he kind of sits there, and then he's open to getting hit. And then obviously, he's got good wrestling. He can be taken down, but it is pretty tough. I mean, the guy's a unit. Like, you look at him, you see veins popping out of every part of this dude's body. And the big beard and the bald head is definitely intimidating. Let's just say that. But on the Vucenic side, like, if he had a little bit more power on the feet, I would be a lot more inclined to take him or even just look to bet him. Because I think if you're going to fight Guram, you have to get his respect on the feet because he does hit hard. He's super explosive, and it's hard to make a guy go backwards or think twice about exploding into you if you can't really come back with anything. Like, you can't fire anything back with heat. Yeah. And I mean, we hasn't really had a lot of knockouts. Vucenic hasn't, but he's a really good grappler. So if Guram does, try to take him to the ground, I think Vucenic can do some work off his back or even try to take Guram's back, because that's his specialty is really the submissions and his grappling. On the feet, he's good, but like I said, he just doesn't really hold a big pop in his shots. And considering, he's moving up a weight class to 155, I don't really expect him to have a lot more pop. But Guram, I think he is a little bit chinny. I think he has some durability concerns, not even just from the Elvis Brenner fight, but even if you watch back the Ismagulov fight, he was getting stung with like jabs and kind of hitting like a little stinger, like he got hit with something big, but it was just a jab. And Ismagulov ain't got no type of finishing power. So I am concerned on the Guram side, just his overall durability, his ability to manage a fight, because it does seem like he just goes, and doesn't really have a plan, just explode. And I think that could get him in trouble, later in the fight if Vucenic is able to weather the storm, and maybe Vucenic could pull something off or take over late second round into the third round. But I think Guram probably wins round one at a pretty high clip here. And I think he probably wins the fight. So I'm going to take Guram for a pick. But I don't know that I would bet on him at minus 215 until he's proven himself to be back in the UFC at the UFC level. Because you look at his odds, in the UFC, he was a big underdog against Gamrot, got a win there. He was an underdog against Ismagulov, takes a loss. And then all of a sudden, he's a minus 670 favorite against Elvis Brenner, and he loses. So now he's a big favorite, not huge favorite, but he's a favorite, minus 215. I don't know that I would bet him until he proves himself again. So take Guram for the pick, but with some hesitancy.
Yeah, as a favorite's not when you bet Guram for sure. The thing I'm super interested in this fight is how the wrestling and grappling on each side is going to play out. Like, Guram's good there. This kid, I think if he wants to beat Guram, I think he has to have success at some point with the wrestling.
Yeah.
Or else, he's going to get stuck on the feet with a guy who does hit hard and is explosive, maybe the better striker. I don't know. But I think it all going to come down to the wrestling. I like that Vucenic has beaten guys like Morgan Charrier. He's fought some good opponents too. So interesting one for sure, though, man. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. I think Vucenic he's been supposed to be in the UFC for a while. And finally here. So excited to see what he does. Moving on, we got Shamil Gaziev coming in at minus 280 against Don'Tale Mason at plus 210. Gaziev's back in action. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Oh, I didn't know if he would ever show face again after his last fight against Rosenstrike.
I know.
It was such a bad fight to watch. Probably one of the worst main events of the year. Just considering the level of the fight. Like, what is it? First 20 seconds, he shoots a takedown and rams his head into the cage. Oh man. I mean, he quickly became a meme. Just the fact that he gassed out and ultimately quit on the stool was wild, man. It was wild. And he just looks so fat doing it. But that's low-level heavyweights for you right there in a nutshell. And here we are. Gaziev hasn't cracked the rankings yet. Don'Tale Mays hasn't cracked the rankings in, I don't think, ever. I don't know if he ever will. But low-level heavyweights here. Who you got?
Yeah, I mean, low-level heavyweights, a guy at plus 210, probably not a bad bet just because it is so sloppy and you're just it's kind of like you get a timer on both guys, and whenever the one's goes off and he's out of gas, and it's probably the other one's fight to win. I think that kind of happens here, honestly. Like, Gaziev, if he gasses out against Don'Tale Mays, I think he's in trouble because Mays, even when he's tired, he's at least going to throw something out there. He's going to throw these, small little, whether it's a teep kick or leg kick or jab. Like, he's always going to be throwing something. Whereas Gaziev, when he gets tired, man, he just kind of, I mean, you could see it in the fight against Rosenstrike. This guy just kind of seems like he's out of ideas, out of options, and he's just in there being a punching bag until the fight's going to come to an end by stoppage, or he's going to throw in the towel, or whatever the case may be. Like Dontel Mays too, not the most, I guess, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. He's not flashy with the striking. He's not super powerful, being as big as he is, but he is a 6'6" heavyweight that has an 81-inch reach. He can be tough, especially in the early rounds to hit. He can be tough to deal with on the feet because of that size. Like, he's an intimidating dude to look up to when you're fighting. He's got a little athleticism to him. He can use it at times. He's not going to be I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to be super easy to take down for Shamil, because I don't think Shamil even has that good of wrestling. I think he was just taking down bums on the regional scene and using that big body to control him and land some ground and pound and getting a lot of wins. I think, if Dontel Mays can get the jab going, bust up the nose early of Shamil, I think Shamil's got quit in him, like we saw against Rosenstruck. Now, Rosenstruck and Dontel Mays, completely different levels of striking. Like, Rosenstruck is a good kickboxer. He got some power. Dontel Mays, not really the case. But, in these low-level heavyweight fights, Mays beats guys like Kyle Machado. He knocked out Andre Arlovsky in the second round, and then he's beaten the lower-level guys like Roque Martinez and Josh Parisian. So I don't know, where does Shamil fit in? Is he a Kyle Machado type of fighter? Is he a step above that, like Augusto Sakai? I mean, I don't know. It's hard to tell where he's going to fit in compared to guys that Dontel Mays has fought so far. But from what I saw in the last fight, he's got a round of gas. Yeah, he beat Martin Budai, but Budai kind of fights down to his opponent's level and tries to just be a step ahead of you wherever you want to take the fight. And we saw Budai arguably lose to Andre Arlovsky. Dontel Mays knocked out Andre Arlovsky. If you like MMA math, there's a little front for you. So I'm going to take the dog here, man. I don't like Shamil Gaziev. He was 12-0 coming into the UFC or into his second fight, and he just looked awful when he met the least bit of resistance. That's just something that nobody's ever had for him, is resistance. Once he gets met with it, I think he's going to fold. I think Dontel's got the size, the jab, the front kicks, everything to kind of slow him down, tire him out, and win a super, super sloppy decision.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this fight and I see past the victory for both guys. For Dontel Mays to win this fight, I kind of think he's got to take the Rosenstrike way and just jab him. It's really all Rosenstrike did was just jab him, leg kick, stay at range. And he weathered an early takedown, but then after that, just jab him and move. And Dontel is a big dude, 6'6", 81-inch reach. Like, he could do that, but he probably won't. Like, This is the facts that Dontel Mays is just not a great fighter. He's not always the smartest guy, so he's probably not going to do that. Now, on the other side, for Gaziev to win this fight, yeah, he could probably, stun Dontel Mays with something, but I think he could probably take the Augusto Sakai approach, which Augusto Sakai just held him against the cage. Just kind of dirty boxed him, landed some knees, break apart, land an elbow type of thing, and it was a really boring heavyweight decision win, 30-27 for Augusto Sakai. So Dontel has shown he can get held up against the cage, and then he got taken down by Hamdi Abdelwahab 3 times, knocked down, lost a decision there, got submitted by Rodrigo Nascimento, got submitted by Ciro Gane. So he obviously has some problems on the ground when he's not in the driver's seat. So all that kind of points to Shamil probably is the easier path to victory here if he just moves forward and has the gas tank to hold up. So we just hope this guy can breathe the Abu Dhabi air. It's not like that at the Apex where he was gasping for air after 3 minutes in there. But yeah, I'll take Gaziev for a pick. Bad performance his last time out. And I don't know that I would bet him at minus 280, but I'd probably look for a decision prop, honestly. I think Gaziev's not really the most potent finisher. And I don't think Dontel Mays is going to go down easily. I don't think Gaziev is really going to be trying to go for a finish. I don't think he wants to gas out. I think he's probably might try to pace himself a little bit more in this one. So I'll take Gaziev.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about it is I just think, for me, Gaziev, he's pretty stationary with his boxing and stuff. Like, he's just kind of in front of you, going to land some big shots, or try to at least. And Dontel Mays through the first round and into the second round, like has decent movement for a heavyweight. Like he's kind of bouncing in and out. Like it's not really the a style that I think Gaziev is going to be able to hit that easily. And if Dontel Mays can win the first 2 rounds and then does gas out, I think it's too little, too late for Gaziev. I don't really think he's going to have enough in the tank to really steal the fight or even find a finish either. So, oh man, it's interesting. It's a sloppy ass fight, but I don't know, man. I'm about to pull the trigger on Dontel Mays. I just don't like Gaziev that much, and I like the little bit of athleticism from Mays here. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I will say the line is pretty bad, man.
Yeah, because you look at Gaziev's last fight, what happened? Quitting on the stool, no cardio, and now he's a minus 280 again. Like, holy shit.
Exactly. Gross stuff. Move on to a fight here between Muhammad Yahya and Kawi Fernandes. Fernandes is a much bigger underdog now at the time that these slides were made. He was plus 180. Now I think he's up to like he's a bigger favorite. Maybe these are wrong.
Yeah, these might
Kawi
be here.
Fernandes is a big favorite here, minus like
410.
And
which is nuts.
Yeah, Muhammad Yahya comes back at like plus 300. So hopefully you're listening to this and you could see that. But Fernandes is a big favorite here against Yahya, who's fighting in his home country, and lost his debut. So did Fernandes. So I don't know why this line is so wide, to be honest. I mean, Yahya's really not. He didn't look awful against Trevor Peek. Trevor Peek is really tough to deal with on the feet because he's so crazy. You don't know what the hell he's doing, and he was getting taken down by Trevor Peek, which is something that Peek really hadn't shown before. And Fernandes lost his debut to Mark Giacchese, who's also tough to deal with, and a guy that he's going to get takedowns on you, and he's got really good top control. And Fernandes in his debut just wasn't ready for that type of wrestling. So both guys got to bounce back for a win here. Who you got?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yahya, the part that I don't like is, I've even seen him on the regional scene. There's fights where he slows down and he's going to decision. It's not like he's the most potent finisher. I don't think he's going to be a big potent finisher in the UFC. Whereas Fernandes, I see as a guy that's going to be able to find some. The problem with Fernandes was just getting taken down by Mark Giacchese. I forget how many times exactly, but it seemed like a bunch anyways. It's kind of controlled a little bit. I know it was his UFC debut. I don't know if you give him a bit of a pass there. Maybe he had some jitters. Just isn't up to that wrestling level yet. But you look at Yahya, I think Muhammad Yahya is a guy that can kind of implement some of that wrestling or at least go for that game plan. I think it's different levels, though. I don't think Yahya's as good of a wrestler as D1 Giacchese. So maybe he doesn't have as much success. I just think that's what he's got to do here. I think if it stays on the feet with Fernandes going to land some big shots. He's explosive. We saw Yahya kind of struggle with that against a guy like Peek. But at the same time, like Yahya had some decent moments against Peek where he looked okay. I wasn't really expecting big things out of him coming into the fight either way. But this one, man, I just think both guys in their debut fought a style that was going to be hard for them to overcome. And this one, it's kind of a step down. For both guys, it's kind of a coin flip to me. Minus 410 on Caio Fernandes is outrageous in my opinion. I think Muhammad Yahya at that price, if you're betting him, I salute you. I think it's not a bad bet by any means. I don't really have a strong opinion on this one. I'll take Fernandes to win the moments on the feet. Maybe he gets taken down, but I think he'll be able to pop back up. So minus 410 though, man, is disgusting.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And honestly, I would like to know, like, what did they see to like make him minus 410? Because I think Yahya is an okay striker. I don't think he's bad at all on the feet. Obviously, I don't think he's the best wrestler or best grappler. I mean, he's been submitted a couple times, and Fernandes is a Nova União guy who is, it's a great gym out of Brazil, and they got really good BJJ there, good striking, good everything. So I think Fernandes is probably the better or the more well-rounded guy going into this fight. And he's had some pretty good fights. I mean, he's fought a guy who's 9-1, 6-1, 4-0. His only loss before the UFC was a guy who was 7-0, and is still undefeated now. I watched that fight, and Fernandes, he got worked. I think he got kind of worked in that fight, which was kind of eye-opening to me. He gassed out a lot towards the end and looked really bad, in the third round. So that does leave some concern. But I think on the feet, Fernandes is probably the more high volume guy. Yahya is a kind of a counter striker. He's got a really nice 1-2, but other than that, he doesn't really find his spots too well. I mean, granted, it's Trevor Peak. Like, it's tough to find spots on that guy. He's very hittable, but you gotta have really good timing, and you also kind of gotta be on your front foot. Because if you let Trevor Peak just swing, then it's tough to find the openings. But if you're the one going forward on him, he doesn't have great defense, and he can't really counter strike himself. So that kind of effed Yahya in there, in my opinion. I think the line should be a little bit closer, but I will take Fernandes for the pick. We also got to take into account Yahya is fighting out of the UAE, and we're in Abu Dhabi. So, if it's a close fight, I wonder who's going to be cheering in the crowd. Probably the guys for Muhammad Yahya, and judges might be swayed that way. But either way, Fernandes will be the pick.
I wonder if Fernandes, was he a big favorite against Mark Chiesa in that fight in his debut?
No, I think he was a slight dog in that one.
Slight dog.
Yeah.
I think his length is just going to be the way he fights, at least. He is a long guy, but he closes the distance. He's explosive with the kicks. I think it's a different style than Trevor Peak, going up against Yahya. I think that's, if anything, what Yahya is going to struggle with if he can't get the takedowns. I think he might be just kind of a sitting duck. But either way, the line's insane.
We'll move on to the featured prelim. Alonzo Menifield taking on Azamat Murzakanov, sitting at -205. Murzakanov is the younger fighter here, which is pretty wild considering this guy just he's just not active. Like, he looks old as hell. Let's just say that. Call a spade a spade. He looks old as hell. He's 13-0, but he's just not an active fighter. I mean, he's had 3 fights in the UFC, made his debut in 2022. So if this guy was more or in the octagon more, he might be a little bit more well known because he's still undefeated. Taking on Menifield here, coming in as the underdog, 36 years of age, coming off the disgusting KO against Carlos Olberg, where he ran at him. Don't know why he ran at him, but he ran at him and got knocked out in 12 seconds. That was back in May. So it's been a little bit over 2 months, about 2.5 months since then. Might be coming back a little bit quick. And he's facing a power puncher here in Murzakanov. What do you got?
Yeah, Murzakanov, first of all, kind of looks like Shamil's younger brother, doesn't it? Got the bald head, the beard going on. A little better shape.
A lot better looking, I would say.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think, Menifield, there's some recency bias in this line because he just went out there and, got put out in 15, 20 seconds, looked terrible, had an awful game plan. And my big red flag with Menifield is he's always got, there's a lot of fights where he does have questionable decision making and fight IQ, not high fight IQ. But, you look at against Jimmy Crute, where in the fight went to a draw, he was landing some big shots. He had Jimmy Crute dead to rights, 2 knockdowns in the fight, was landing massive shots, and then, would kind of go for the clinch and put him up against the cage. At times he should have been teeing off and probably would have got the stoppage. Stuff like that. Going in against Olberg, who's a technician, who's got power, and he comes in there sloppy, running straight across, trying to end it in 5 seconds and just gets countered and put out. I don't like seeing stuff like that, especially going up against Murzakanov, who's undefeated. And you would think, with that last name being an OV, this guy is going to come out here and push a wrestling pace. But his striking's phenomenal, dude. He's very technical. We saw him in Kansas City beat Dustin Jacoby. He landed a knockdown in that fight. He had him hurt other times. That was kind of before Dustin Jacoby had taken these losses. I believe that was what was that, Jacoby's first loss since, I guess he lost to Roundtree in a controversial one. But outside of that, he hadn't lost since he got back into the UFC in 2020. He was on a 7-fight unbeaten streak. So, he's very skilled in that department. I think if Menifield comes out here and wants to stand and get sloppy and wild, Murzakonov's going to have his chances to tee off, land counter shots. Azamat kind of has that counter striking, style at times. Oh man, I want to take Menifield at this price, plus 160-ish, because of the power. I just don't think I don't think he's going to really pan out. I think his time's a little bit past. I think Murzakanov, not that active, but he's going to be prepared. He's going to be the more technical striker who also holds a lot of power. I think that's kind of the style you got to have to beat Menifield. So I'm going to take Murzakanov. And if push comes to shove and Murzakanov does get in a little trouble, I think the wrestling and the ability to grab on and put him against the cage is going to be an option too. So, yeah, give me him for the pick.
Yeah, man, if Murzakanov, he's got such a small frame for light heavyweight. I mean, he's 5'10", 71.5-inch reach, but he's still managed to keep his undefeated record, and he looks good on the feet, man. Like he's a southpaw, and he's got real good timing on with his left hand, and he's just real solid base. He's not gonna throw anything crazy like Menifield running at you at the beginning of the fight, throwing wild hooks and then get clipped. So he's a real technical kickboxer who also has some wrestling in his back pocket that we just haven't really seen yet at the UFC level. I think his defensive wrestling is pretty damn good. I don't think Alonzo Menifield can stand and strike with him. Of course, Menifield can land his wild hooks like he kind of did against Jacoby and just get the better of the moments. And Murzakanov at times does look a little bit low volume, but I'm going to take the more technical striker here, the guy who's more durable, still undefeated. And Menifield at 36. I mean, he's got a nice little motor, but I don't think he can match up skill-wise with Murzakanov. So I'm going to take Azmat.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I'll add too is outside of the Dustin Jacoby win for Menifield's beat nobody. He's beat Jimmy Crute, Misha Serkinov, Askar Mozarov, Ed Herman, Fabio Charant, Paul Craig, decent win, I guess. KO very, very early in the fight. Vinicius Moreira, Deshaun Boatwright. I mean, this dude not really beating any high-level competition.
All right, let's move on to the main card. We got Yoel Alvarez taking on Elvis Brenner. Brenner coming in as the underdog, Alvarez the favorite. Alvarez, always a big frame, 6'3" for the lightweight division. Got that Jalen Turner frame, man. These dudes just killing themselves to be at 155. He is the older fighter here against Elvis Brenner, who's 26 years of age. We all know the legend of Brenner came to a close his last time out. Got his first UFC loss against Miktabek Oralbai, who looks to be an absolute stud in the lightweight division. Now, Yoel Alvarez coming off a win against Mark Giacchese a little over a year, almost exactly a year, it was a round 2 submission, which I thought should have been a no contest. And it's not because I had a bet on Giacchese as a big dog, because they clashed heads. Giacchese looks at the ref and he's like, yo, we just clashed heads. Can you give us a second? And the ref says, no, keep fighting. And then Alvarez just unleashes some body shots. Giacchese's like, oh shit, shoots for a takedown and then gets Darce choked. So we know the main advantage for Alvarez here is his submission. Those long limbs, that's what he wants to do. And if Elvis Brenner is going to be shooting takedowns, he's going to have to watch out for that. But on the feet, we know Elvis Brenner is a dog. We know this guy cannot be finished. He's never been finished. Maybe he can be finished. But I don't know that Alvarez is going to be submitting this dude, because this dude went life and death with Guram. I think you got to kill this guy for him to be finished. So this will be a good scrap, man. I'm looking forward to it. What do you got?
Yeah, he went life and death with Guram, and then same thing with Oralbai, and he was able to survive. He was in so many bad situations in that fight, got knocked down, taken down 5 times, and I just think Oralbai is the truth, man. I don't think it's a loss you can really hang your head about. Brenner, he's a dog. That's the style he fights with. We saw it, even in the first fight. I arguably thought he lost to Zubaira Tukhugov. He made it close though in his debut. That's a guy who racks up wins. So, and then he comes in against Guram, was losing the fight up until, but again, you just can't count him out of these fights. If you slow down the slightest and Brenner's still there, he's gonna make it a tough night for you. He'll land some big shots. I mean, we saw Kanan Krzyzewski just fight Kurt Hollabaugh and eat some big shots from Kurt. Kurt has hands. This dude hits hard, and he stayed standing. Elvis Brenner flatlined this dude. So he's got power in his hands as well. I think Joel Alvarez is going to have to be a little careful coming into this one. I think Joel, though, has a great record. He has won a lot of fights, and he's been fighting, some decent competition. Yeah, he beat Giacchese, controversial, but, finishing Thiago Moises round 2, submitting a couple other guys, Smith's Joe Duffy, He's getting wins. His only losses, Arman Sarukian, which he did get dominated, and Damir Ismagulov. And at the time, Damir was had like over 20 wins and 1 loss. So, he's losing to the great guys, and he's beating the guys he should. So we'll have to see where Elvis fits in. I kind of like the dog shot. I think Elvis Brenner as an underdog is just kind of a automatic play at this point because he's going to be there. Seems impossible to finish. Got big power in the hands, and you know where he trains, so you know this guy's not a slouch on the ground at all. He's going to be hard to submit, hard to kill. I like that style a little bit more, so I'll take Brenner for the pick. But this has, this kind of has fight of the night written all over it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Might be my favorite fight on the card.
I know,
just because we don't really see Alvarez all that often, and to match him up against Brenner, it's a good fight.
Oh, dude, they're so fun, both of them.
Yeah, so this is a tough one, but I think I'm going to go with Brenner too, just based on the fact that before he got at the UFC, he was a submission guy, and training that shoot to box, they got real good BJJ. And I look at Alvarez's record in the UFC, it's not really like his wins age all that well, and then it's also you got to take into account that Alvarez isn't the guy shooting for these takedowns. Like these guys are taking him down, and he's getting these submissions. Could Elvis Brenner go for a takedown? Sure. But, I don't think that would probably be the smartest thing to do. But I also don't think that Elvis needs to get a takedown by any means. And then on the feet, Elvis has a higher knockdown rate. And Alvarez hasn't even landed a knockdown in the UFC. So I don't really think Alvarez has some great striking. Now, he's the longer guy. But I also think Brenner's a guy that's going to keep coming forward, and he's going to throw hard. He's got good kicks from the outside as well. So I kind of lean in Brenner just on the fact that he's a guy that you can always take as a dog. He's going to fight for your money. And not that I'm betting on him yet. I don't know. But for a pick, he's going to fight for it. And I don't know that Alvarez really has that great of wins. His best win would be Thiago Moises, I guess. And he just split him open with elbows. That's definitely something that Brenner's going to have to look out for in this one. But I think on the feet, Brenner can match him, and I don't think he's going to get submitted. So I'll take Brenner for a pick.
I like it.
Moving on, we got Mackenzie Dern and Lupita Godinez. Godinez coming in as the underdog against Mackenzie Dern, set at minus 132. Mackenzie Dern coming off the loss to Amanda Lemos, and Lupi coming off the loss to Verna Jandiroba. Sounds very interesting. A fight that we just had 2 weeks ago. Here they are, the losers of their last 2 fights. One of them's got to get a win here, and Mackenzie Dern looks like she's back with her boxing coach, Jason Perillo. That should be a good sign, I think, because the last time she wasn't with him, when she got rid of him, then she went out there against Jessica Andrade and got dropped 4 times. And she might need some stand-up in this fight because, Lupe has a pretty good stand-up game, really solid boxing, and she's looking to bounce back after her first loss since August of 2022. Who you got?
Yeah, this one's tough for me because, I get the hype around Dern. She's good looking. Her submission game, super fun. Lately, though, since, in the last 3 to 4 years, she's not really winning all that much. She's losing to great fighters, losses to Madrina Rodriguez, Yao Xiaonan, who gave Zhang Weili all she could handle at times, Jessica Andrade, Amanda Lemos. But, when she's fighting like she did against Angela Hill, she was able to land 126 significant strikes over a technical striker with a good pace in Angela Hill. I thought that was the turning corner for Mackenzie Dern. I thought that's when we're going to see her take this next step to where she's rounded out her game and she can hang on the feet. And if you can't hang with her on the feet and try to take her down, she's going to submit you. And then she gets knocked down 4 times by Jessica Andrade, who was on a losing streak herself, who, couldn't buy a win at that point. So, I don't know. In this matchup, though, Lupi, she has a good record in her last, couple of years. She's been super active, beat Cynthia Calvillo in a fight I thought she lost, though. And then, she's beaten Ducote, who obviously we know probably had a little hype as a female MMA fighter coming to the UFC. Probably not going to pan out. And then she beats Elise Reed, not the best win in the world. Split decision against Tabitha Ricci. Good win there. Lost Verna Jandiroba. Lupi's kind of this fighter. You never know what you're going to get. Are you going to get this wrestling heavy game like she did against Elise Reed? Are you going to get the boxer like she was against Tabitha Ricci? And, I think she obviously in this fight stay off the mat with her. But if Dern turns the clock back like she did against Angela Hill and just has this pressure in your face, I think it kind of forces Loopy to try to shoot for those takedowns. I think it forces her to kind of mix up her game plan, or at least be vulnerable to the takedown, because when Dern gets girls on the ground, she makes it extremely interesting. She's super dangerous. I think this fight goes very similar to the Amanda Lemos Mackenzie Dern fight, where Lemos was winning the striking battle very early in the fight, big shots, even a knockdown, almost finishes the fight. And then all of a sudden, Mackenzie Dern's on her back. Mackenzie Dern's doing what she wants, almost completing these submissions, or getting into a position to complete the submissions. And it makes it a very close fight that people were kind of sweating out. I could see that exact same thing happen here. I don't think Loopy is quite as good as the Amanda Lemos is, obviously, is the Verna Jandarobas, who Dern has beat, by the way. So, yeah, I think it just depends if Dern's been working hard and trying to round out that boxing some more. And if she has, I think this is a closer fight. Minus 132, though, it's very tempting to me on Dern, because I do think she bounces back here. But Loopy just racks up a lot of wins, man. She just finds a way. So I was really close earlier to pulling the trigger on Dern. Still kind of researching, watching tape, and thinking about what to do with this one. But it's going to be a close fight either way. I'm going to take Dern for the pick right now, but that could change later in the week.
It's just so hard for me to trust Loopy Godinez, man.
Yeah.
She's just, every time she's like starting to look good, it's just the fight IQ is just never there. I mean, she really doesn't need to grapple with Verna. Like, why are you grappling with Verna? Just stand and strike with her. She loses that fight. And then honestly, when she has just stand-up fights with girls, it's kind of hard for her to separate herself, because she has a good amount of volume, but she doesn't have the most power. I don't think she ever has a win by knockout. I don't have to check that, but if she does, maybe it's like one.
Not in the UFC.
Yeah, definitely not in the UFC. Yeah, she doesn't have a knockout win ever. So she doesn't have power to really separate herself on the feet. And then a big thing with her is, like, she has great wrestling. Well, in this spot, can she really use the wrestling? And would using the wrestling be a smart move? It might not be, and she might still do it. So I don't know, man. Like, Loopy is such a wild card for me. I will say this, though. Loopy has never been an underdog in her entire UFC career. So that's intriguing a little bit, just to get, a plus money next to Loopy's name. But at the same time, I mean, Mackenzie Dern is a girl that has been, pretty valuable to the books in the past. Like, she was, even though she got knocked out in the second round against Andrade and looked terrible, she was minus 205 in that spot. And yeah, it was after her great win against Angela Hill. And then she's lost 2 in a row. She's still a favorite here. I think she's been fighting the much higher level of competition in the UFC by far. Like Lemos, Andrade, Hill, Yan Xiaonan, Tisha Pennington, Marina Rodriguez. Those are her last 6 fights. And then you look at Loopy. Loopy's got more wins, but they're against much lower level of competition. The Elise Reeds of the world, the Emily Ducote, who just got cut. R.I.P. Emily Ducote. Cynthia Calvillo, who's on the brink of retirement. Ariane Carnelosi, who can't stuff a takedown. And even her win against Tabitha Ricci, it wasn't really cemented. Like, one of the judges gave it to Tabitha Ricci, even though it was a bad scorecard. Just the fact that one of them gave her to Tabitha is concerning to me. I think Mackenzie is aggressive on the feet. She's proven to be really tough, even though she can get rocked. And she has a elite ground game. Even she was grappling with Verna Jandiroba, and Verna wasn't doing well in those grappling exchanges. So I think she's got an advantage on the ground. I think she don't even need to get takedowns. Like, she won the fight against Tisha Pennington without getting a takedown, just by getting her back and taking her back from the standing position. So I think there's a lot of paths to victory for Mackenzie here. So I'm going to take her for a pick. I want to see where this line moves, though, just as far as a betting perspective goes. Because if she grows, I might take a look at the Loopy side. But if she comes down a little bit, then I'd be licking my chop and you're looking at Dern.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like, for me, when I look at Loopy, and I wonder, is she going to implement a little wrestling in this game against a girl as dangerous in that department as Dern? I tend to think she might, because if you look at her fights, she's only blowing these girls out of the water when she can get takedowns and when she's wrestling. When it's on the feet, she's going to close-ass decisions. Tabitha Ricci split decision, even though she won that pretty convincingly. Cynthia Calvillo, no takedowns landed in that fight, wins a split decision, but was outlanded 104-87 against Cynthia Calvillo. I thought Cynthia won that fight, and I had an underdog play on her there. Really, when she's beating these girls by a long shot, Loma Bunmi, 5 takedowns landed. Ariana Carnelosi, 8 takedowns landed. Elise Reed, 5 takedowns landed. And, losing to girls that when she can't get takedowns, Verna Jandaroba, Angela Hill, Luana Carolina beat her. If she can't land the takedowns, man, she makes fights way too close for comfort. If she implements that game here, she might get submitted or end up on her back, and that's not where you want to be against Dern.
Sir, we'll move on to the people's main event, man. Tony Ferguson, 40-year-old Tony, stepping in as a near plus 400 underdog against Michael Chiesa, sitting at minus 590. Chiesa's 36, lost 3 fights in a row. Tony's 40, lost 7 fights in a row. This is quite the fight that they put together. I'm not going to lie. Tony's going up a weight class. He's been fighting at 155 most of the time since throughout his 170 or throughout his 7 loss streak. Facing a bigger man here in Chiesa, more youthful man, probably less tread on the tires. What do you got?
Tony's put us in such a bad spot, because if you pick Tony and you're wrong, you look like an absolute idiot because he's on a 7-fight losing streak. And it's like, how the hell could you ever pick Tony? But now he's a plus almost 400 underdog on a guy who, at this age, not as dangerous as he once was, but he shows little flashes here and there, stumbling Michael Chandler. Made the last round against Patty a little interesting because Patty kind of emptied the tank in the first, trying to finish the fight. Tony is a guy who's not going to beat the top level competition anymore. Like, you look at this 7-fight losing streak, it makes sense. Patty Pimblett, young up and coming guy. King Green, fast still. Nate Diaz, that was his best chance to get a win, in my opinion, in the last 7 fights. So, then you're fighting the Chandlers, Dariush, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, like the guys that are still towards the top of this division and one of the best divisions in the UFC. Like, he didn't really have a prayer. Michael Chiesa is not that. He is not what these other guys are. Michael Chiesa, towards the end of his career, not going to be surprised when he retires in this fight, next fight, whenever it is. 3-fight losing streak. He's fighting good guys, though. Holland, Sean Brady, Vicente Luque. Before that, his last win's 2021 against Neil Magny, which is like a decent win in itself, but he was just able to take him down and control him. The problem there is, like, if you take Tony down, Tony's weird off of his back. He makes you uncomfortable even when you do have a good position. And, if he somehow gets on Chiesa's back, like, I don't think Chiesa is I don't even know how. I don't think Chiesa is going to get submitted by Tony, but I also don't think Tony's like levels below him on the ground by any means. So I think this fight's way closer than a minus 590. Like, if you're taking minus 590 on Michael Chiesa, I don't care if it is over 0-7 Tony Ferguson. Like, minus 590 on him is insane. So I don't know, man. This is pretty cut and dry. I'll take Chiesa for the pick, but plus 400 almost on Tony Ferguson when his back's against the wall for the 8th time. Yeah. I don't know. It might be worth a little shot because Chiesa is not all that.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
You look like an idiot either way you go. Yeah.
This is the biggest underdog that Tony has ever been in his entire career. And it's against a guy who's lost 3 fights in a row. Like, that says a lot about what the odds makers think of Tony Ferguson right now. Like, you don't have to look any further. They think this guy should not be fighting. And I've been saying it for the past 2 or 3 fights. Like, obviously, I don't think Tony should be fighting anymore. He's lost 7 fights in a row. After he got submitted by Nate Diaz, I was like, this guy has to retire. He has nothing left. And the fact that we got plus money on Nate Diaz was just crazy. Because Tony has been this guy that was not getting subbed by Charles Oliveira. Got put in that nasty armbar, not getting subbed, not tapping. Not getting subbed by Beneil Dariush, 2 of the best jiu-jitsu guys, at 155. And then he's getting guillotine choked by Nate Diaz in the 4th round. Then he's getting arm triangled by Bobby Green in the 3rd round. Like, obviously, there's some sort of I'm not there anymore type of thing where you're getting subbed by those guys, but not, Charles and Beneil a couple of years prior. On the other side, Chiesa, it's a dude that just, it's very obvious where he's at right now. He's a guy that's works the desk for the UFC. I have no idea why he's still fighting. This almost seems like a spot where he's just like, okay, I'm going to get a win and I might retire or whatever. And I've talked to Chiesa's manager, and I think he said that when they saw the fight offer, they signed it right away. So that tells me that they might be a nice little paycheck for Chiesa. Thinks it's an easy fight type of thing. And honestly, I think Chiesa should probably get a win here. And every MMA YouTuber is gonna, mention the Tony Darce choke, and Chiesa's been subbed by a Darce choke 4 or 5 times in the UFC. So yeah, there's obviously the Darce choke narrative there for Tony, and it wouldn't surprise me if he pulled it off. And honestly, I'm kind of looking at this fight I want to see what the fight that ends by sub pays out, because Tony's live for that Darce, but then Tony's also been subbed twice in his last 3 fights, and I think Chiesa, he's a wrestler. He's gonna want to get the fight to the ground, and he's got 10 submissions. So I'm kind of looking at that angle. But for a straight up pick, I got to go with Michael Chiesa, man.
What happens if Tony keeps it on the feet, do you think?
I mean,
he's not fast this age.
I know, he's just so damn slow. And it's not like Chiesa's good on the feet by any means. He's a guy that's never been a great striker. And that's probably where Chiesa feels the most danger, honestly. He'd probably just want to lay in guard against Tony for 15 minutes and pick up his check. So on the feet, I mean, Tony could hit him with some shots, but I don't think he has big power. Maybe he can land some big uppercut or something like that, or it's those elbows, or get those elbows going.
Doctor stoppage.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It's just a disgusting fight, but I can't wait to watch it, honestly. It's so gross, but I can't wait to watch it.
Imagine Tony comes out here and starches him. Just finds a big shot, submission, TKO, anything. Can you imagine?
I can't. I really can't even.
Tony Ferguson undefeated in 2024.
Oh man, yeah, he hasn't lost. So I pick up his first, but Chiesa's the pick. We'll move on to the featured bout of the card.
I love this.
Chito Vera taking on Davison Figueiredo. Figueiredo, 36 years of age. Chito Vera, 31 years of age. Still in his physical prime, but he does it a lot of miles. And he took a lot of big shots his last fight against O'Malley. It's an interesting fight, man. Very interesting fight. I'm interested to hear what you got to say. What do you got?
I've seen a ton of people counting out Chito Vera, and I get it. Recency bias is very real in this sport. And Chito Vera obviously just got worked by Sean O'Malley. Maybe one of the worst ass kickings we've seen in a long time without there being a finish. 230 to 89 was the significant strike totals. That's insane. But Chito's also proved in his UFC career the guy is impossible to finish. I don't think you can knock this dude out. No matter what you hit him with, it's insane. But when you look at who he's losing to, it's the champ Sean O'Malley, who hasn't lost to anybody besides Chito. If you call that still the injury, yada yada, whether you think it's a fluke or not. That's his one loss recently. He lost to Corey Sandhagen, who's fighting Umar in the main event on this card. And Corey has shown that he's one of the most well-rounded fighters in this division, which is one of the toughest divisions in the UFC. Jose Aldo, Song Yadong, and back a long time ago, Douglas Silva de Andrade and John Lineker. Outside of that, this dude's winning and beating a lot of guys. Frankie Edgar, Rob Font, Dom Cruz, Pedro Munez, Davey Grant, and then the fluke win over Sean O'Malley. Those are his past wins in the last couple of years. That's a good resume there. Some of those guys a little bit older, but he's looked pretty good. He is a slow starter. Everybody knows it. He drops the first round a lot. But when you look on paper between him and Davison Figueiredo, Figueiredo actually lands 1.3 significant strikes less per minute than Chito Vera. He is kind of head hunting in a lot of his fights. Obviously, he's got some decent wrestling and a good submission game. But I think Chito Vera, people underrate his submission game as well and his takedown defense. This guy holds a 70% takedown defense. He's slick on the ground. He's actually got more professional submissions than Deiveson Figueiredo and 0 submission losses. Figueiredo got subbed by Brandon Moreno. Figueiredo's also been stopped by Brandon Moreno via strikes. Had that nasty. Was it? I forget what strike it was that cut him open. Really messed his eye up badly, and fight was over at that point. Like Figueiredo's there to be hit at times. He's up a weight division from 125 to 135. Chito does hit hard at the end of the day. Maybe he takes a little bit to get going, starts losing the fight, and looks for that big shot. But Figueiredo, if he can't get the wrestling going here, this is going to be a pretty even fight on the feet, in my opinion. Both guys are durable. Chito probably a little bit more durable. Chito's going to be 3 inches taller. He's also going to have a little bit of a reach advantage. What does he have? A 2-inch reach advantage, not a whole lot. But I just think this fight's going to be pretty close. I kind of like the dog money on Marlon Chito Vera for the bounce back. Buy low, sell high. Figgy just submitted Cody Garbrandt. Cody's past his prime, man. Cody's not. No, he's not it anymore. So yeah, I just don't hold a lot of stake into that win. Looked very good against Rob Font, but I just don't think he's going to go out there and take down Chito Vera like he did Rob Font. So I'm going to take Chito for the underdog pick. I think this is going to be a fade the public spot. I think a lot of people are going to be, I think Chito's probably going to be the sharp side. People see Figgy against a guy who just got his ass kicked by Sean O'Malley, and they're going to jump on Figgy. So yeah, give me Vera.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. I think, when I first looked at it, and I right after we walked out of that stadium in Miami, man, I thought I'm never betting on Chito Vera ever again, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like this guy had the best opportunity of his career, and he just fought like nothing. So it's really tough to have faith in the guy, but I do think stylistically this is a matchup that he can win, because I put out a video before that 299 car that said, all of Chito Vera's wins in the past, or his last 5 wins, are against guys who are 35 or older. And obviously, Figueiredo falls into that category. Maybe they're not the level of Figueiredo, or maybe they're a little bit more fresher. And I honestly look at Davison's move to bantamweight, and I think it's pretty overrated. Yeah. Just the fact that he moved up to bantamweight, he gets a win against Rob Font. Rob Font is like 1-4 in his last 5. And has like a 36% takedown defense or something like that. And Davison mixed in the wrestling. He looked good, got the win, and then a win over Cody doesn't do anything for you in 2024. Honestly, it really doesn't. So I think those wins look good for the people that look at that and they're like, oh, I'd moved to bantamweight. He can get wins here, and he should be able to beat Chito because Chito just got smoked by Sean O'Malley. But I think stylistically, Figueiredo's a guy that is going to stand there, and he's there to hit. He's not a guy that creates a bunch of angles like a Sean O'Malley, like a Corey Sandhagen. He's a guy that's going to stand in front of you, and he wants to counter strike or just land big punches. And where I think Chito loses fights is when guys create angles, they move a lot. It's hard for Chito to track them down, and they're able to be in and out. And I don't know that Figgy is able to do that here. He's never really had that fight style. So if he's there to be hit, I think Chito can hit him as well. And I don't think Figgy can outclass him on the ground. I think he could probably get a takedown or 2, but I don't think Chito's gonna, lay. I hope to God he doesn't lay and just lay in his guard. He does that shit, man. I'm finally over with Chito, but he can get back up to his feet and do work there. But yeah, I think it's dog or pass, man. I think Chito's getting a little bit, undervalued here in this spot, so I'm gonna go Chito.
I like it.
Brings us to the co-main event. Nurmagomedov taking on Michał Oleksiejczuk. Oleksiejczuk coming off the loss to Kevin Holland, where we all thought his arm snapped, but I guess not, because he's fighting now. He's stepping in on short notice to take on Nurmagomedov. And Magomedov coming off the win over Tricoli at Saudi Arabia about a month ago. Quick turnaround for him, but he's a guy that can't really fight a lot of places, so he's got to fight in the Middle East. And it's probably a smart move to get on this card, get in the co-main event spot, and put on another performance. I will say this, though. Doesn't this dude, like right after his fight, he went and flew to like LA for a movie show or something like
Yeah.
that. I kind of just remembered that.
He's
I'm
gone
like,
Hollywood.
dude, that was like a month ago. And like, how long were you in LA? Like, were you even training for this? Like, what's going on? So that kind of raises a red flag to me. But either way, so should be a good fight. Should be a striker's delight. Who you got?
Yeah, it is interesting. The two issues I see on each side. So for Shara Bullet, like he beats Tricoli, UFC debut grappler, and knocks him out in round 3. But he was getting hit with a few shots in the first round, and he was getting backed up against the fence. And against Bruno Silva, he won the fight, but he was getting taken down. I don't necessarily think. I mean, I know Oleksiejczuk's not going to have that wrestling game plan here, but I mean, those are kind of the fighters that they're giving Shara bullet so far. Bruno Silva gets hit a lot. He was able to even mix up the takedowns, make it interesting a few times. Tricoli, that win just doesn't really do anything for me. And now you're fighting Oleksiejczuk, who has more experience. But the red flag for him is that he's at the end of his career. He's been pretty vocal about that. And he's losing a lot of fights right now. But, he's losing to guys that are going to take him down and submit him. Michel Pereira, submission. Kevin Holland, submission. Caio Bahayo, submission. But when you stand and trade with this guy on the feet, he's kind of a savage, dude. Like he's a very slick boxer with that left hand from hell. Like he got rocked against Chidi Njokuani. And, while he's hurt, was able to land a takedown somehow, but land some monster shots too, and eventually put the fight away by stoppage. Same thing with Brundage. He got taken down a couple times in the first round, but was able to reverse position, land some insane strikes from top, and finish that fight as well. Knocks out Sam Alvey, breaks Sam Alvey's jaw. The guy hits very hard, man. Shara hasn't really seen that, I don't think, in his professional MMA career. Like maybe in kickboxing, he fought some good strikers, but this is just a little bit different. It's MMA. Oleksiejczuk is a seasoned veteran with a lot of UFC experience against some really good fighters. I think this is the first time we're going to see Shara kind of matched up against a guy who has, this is going to be the best striking he's seen at this level. And, when Oleksiejczuk puts you against the fence and starts ripping the body and comes upstairs, he is hard to deal with. The last kind of red flag for Oleksiejczuk too is when he's winning fights, even when he's losing fights, it's very early on. It's first round, second round. I don't think his cardio is great. I don't think it's going to hold up great here either. But I mean, Shara Bullet, if he hasn't been training, hasn't been locked in, and he's looking past Oleksiejczuk, maybe his cardio is not looking the best either. And this is just going to be a slugger, slug it out on the feet type of fight where either guy can win. So I'm going to take Shara Bullet for the pick. I like the youth. Hasn't taken as much damage as a guy like Oleksiejczuk, and he does hit hard and has good striking. But if Oleksiejczuk comes out here and somehow knocks out Shara Bullet, or wins the first 2 rounds just based off landing the bigger shots and throwing more volume, wouldn't really shock me. But I'll take Shara for the pick, man.
I'm really trying not to take Michal Oleksiejczuk here because
he just lets you down so much, man.
The thing is, like, I want to fade Nurmagomedov because I don't think his hands are good at all. Like, I think he just hides behind his kicks, uses his movement, and his UFC level competition really ain't that good. Like, his last fight was against an absolute can,
yeah.
and he took him 3 rounds to get him out of there. Now, the problem with Oleksiejczuk is I don't think the guy really cares if he wins or loses. And sure, that's not really the biggest thing to take into account when you're an underdog. Obviously, when you're a favorite, you're going to lay chalk on him. Like, got to take that into account. But he's an underdog here. And I think he's live just because he is durable on the feet. He's only been knocked out once in his career. His demise has been the submission. I don't see Nurmagomedov pulling off a submission here. And on the feet, I mean, he's an ex-205er. He's a big dude with big power, and he's knocked out a lot of guys. And I think Shara's hands are lacking. He hides behind those kicks, and if Oleksiejczuk can get into range, he can let that big hand go. And he's already fought a guy that's bigger than him in Chidi Njokuani, who's 6'3", an 80-inch reach. He took his best shots, took a head kick, and just kept walking forward and swinging big bombs, and he broke Chidi. So I think he could do something similar here, but it all comes down to the fact that I don't think Oleksiejczuk cares if he wins or loses. So I think he's just taking fights for paychecks, and I'm not going to go against an OV in Abu Dhabi here who's still undefeated. But I'm not to say that I won't bet on Oleksiejczuk by KO or something like that. But I will take Magomedov for the pick because I just can't really trust Oleksiejczuk to go in there and get a win because I don't really think he cares. So Magomedov's the pick.
All right, I'll correct myself real quick. I made it seem like Mikhail Oleksiejczuk is super old, and he's actually 29, and he's younger than Shara here. But from a career standpoint, he's kind of been vocal about. I don't know if he's serious when he says, he's going to be done with mixed martial arts after his next loss or what the deal is. But he's actually younger than Shara, which kind of surprises me after I just looked. But as far as career goes, he's definitely had a long one, especially in the UFC, and it might be towards the end of that career, but definitely not old.
Brings us to the main event. Corey Sandhagen coming as the underdog against Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar's 28 years of age. Corey, 32. Corey with a 3-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Undefeated is Umar Nurmagomedov. Does he pick up his first loss against the Sandman, or does he get a win to possibly get himself a title shot? What do you got?
This line and everything about this fight reminds me of last week's Bilal and Leon Edwards. Like, everybody's expecting Umar to come out here and implement his game plan and like submit Corey Sandhagen or just beat him by a dominant decision, kind of like they were expecting Leon to get the head kick KO or just outstrike this dude on the feet. But Corey's kind of the same as Bilal, not style wise or skill wise, but he's just well rounded enough to where he's going to make every fight he's in interesting. I think a lot of people hang on the fact that Corey lost to Aljamain Sterling very quickly in round 1 by submission. But outside of that, man, his losses are Petr Yan, 5-round decision, which, Corey outlanded him in that fight. Yeah, Petr had some good moments and more power shots. And then he lost to TJ Dillashaw in a split decision that I thought a lot of people, including myself, thought that he won. So he's got a very good record. He's fought very high-level guys, Cheeto, Vera, Song Yadong, the guys I just listed, and the list goes on even. The guy is so athletic, and he's so flashy with the striking. He's also technical at the same time with it. And, we saw against, was it Rob Font? Yeah, against Rob Font, where he landed 7 takedowns in the fight, was able to, keep Rob on his back and play that game too. So the guy's been working on his grappling, his wrestling. If Umar comes out here and lands 5-6 takedowns, I'd be a little surprised. I don't think he's going to have as much success as a lot of people think, because Umar, if he gets the double leg and can pick him up and drop him down, yeah, he'll get takedowns. But if he's trying a single leg on Sandhagen, I just think those are going to be hard to complete. Sandhagen's so long, he's got such good balance, so athletic. I think it's gonna be a harder time than people realize. And while it's on the feet, like, Umar hits hard, his striking is coming along and getting pretty good, but Corey's movement is so hard to deal with, and he's so hard to find at times with the strikes. And a guy like Umar, who's got the wrestling base, like, that's his game. I don't see him having the success on the feet. If other guys can't, like the Rob Fonts and even Cheeto and Song Yadong, like, I really don't think Umar is at all. I think Umar has to get the takedowns. He's got to win off of control alone. I don't think he's submitting Corey because, everybody thinks that Umar's this big submission guy, but in reality, he's just a wrestler who gets dominant position and submits lower level dudes. So couldn't submit Nate Maness, who just got cut from the UFC, by the way, or just not re-signed. So yeah, I don't know, man. He didn't submit his last guy he fought, which was a debuter, and Beksat Almakhan. What is his only? He submitted Brian Kelleher and Sergey Morozov. So this is a big jump in competition, man. I think the line's a little crazy. I think it should be a little more even. So I'm going to go with my gut, and I'm going to pick Corey Sandhagen once again. But I don't know if I'm going to bet it, just because Nurmagomedov in Abu Dhabi, main event, like, what could go wrong, right? So that's how I see it, though.
Umar's the first guy to knock out Raoni Barcelos, though. We'll say that.
Raoni Barcelos, man.
And Corey Sandhagen 0-1 against Russians. Lost to Petr Yan. And that was the last time he was
kind of Russian.
That was the last time he was a plus 200 underdog or more. But I will say this, man. Like, Umar obviously has never fought anyone near the caliber of Corey So it's really tough to lay, minus 310 or higher on a guy that hasn't faced that level of competition. And we know Corey is good. I would assume, I think he'll probably have a good chance with the boxing. Like he creates really nice angles and he flows with a lot of his stuff. But Umar does have very good kicks from the outside, and I think it'll be tough for Corey to get in on the inside. And when he does, I think Umar is probably just going to level change. And Corey can get taken down. It's not like he's got some stellar takedown defense. And when you move that much, it's tough to keep that takedown defense. I mean, he's getting taken down by Song Yadong 2 out of 2 times. Rob Font even took him down. I mean, I think it's a tough fight for Corey, but that doesn't mean he can't win. Because Umar's he's going to be very disciplined on the feet. He's not going to throw anything crazy. We've already seen him get hit against Beksot and then just immediately on a single leg gets the takedown. So my pick's going to be Umar Nurmagomedov, but I don't know that I would bet it, man. Like, I don't really see any value in that until he proves that he can beat a guy like Sandhagen easily. But ultimately, I think he probably wins the minutes here. I don't really see him not getting takedowns, and I don't see him getting outclassed on the feet to where it's like, holy shit, Sandhagen's just piecing the shit out of him. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe, Corey could always land one of those flying knees like he did against Frankie if Umar is going to be shooting takedowns. That's always on the board. But for a pick, I got to go with Umar. I just think it's a tough fight for Corey. Tough fight for anybody, really. But not sure that I would bet on it.
Imagine Corey comes in and just shoots and lands the first takedown of the fight.
I think he could get takedowns.
I do too.
Yeah, I think he can too.
I think he gets the back here on Umar. Umar's got that style. If he's up against the cage, Corey's so long, and we've seen it in his last fights. Like he's getting really good with the grappling and the wrestling. He uses his leverage and his length really well. Like I can see him reversing position, and I can see him taking the back at times too when Umar's going for these takedowns.
We'll see.
I don't know if he can submit him. I don't know if he can submit him. Yeah. Like I don't think he's going to get to the back and try to get his hooks in or anything. But I just feel like he's going to be able to counter grapple some of these exchanges.
Yeah, it's tough to go against Nurmagomedov in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think that's ever panned out going against one of those. So we'll see. But good fight. Good fight. Interested to see how Umar stacks up against Corey and if Corey can put him in his place or not. But those are the picks for UFC Abu Dhabi. Once again, if you want all the bets, jump in the Homo Fight Picks Premium membership. That's where you're going to get them every single week. We also got PFL this week. Definitely going to have bets for those. And you can follow us at Homo Picks on IG. Our free play last week lost, but I think we're 8 out of our last 10 now? Yeah, 8 of our last 10. So we took a loss last week, but we're on a run before that. So stay tuned for that at Homo Picks on IG, at HeyJai Picks on the medias. For me, where can I find you?
All social medias at the Parlay MMA.
Till next week, the double leg signing out.